Okay, now it's my turn to share my screen, and we're going to move on to something which really turns everything we've been talking about around. Many of the themes that we've been talking about already today are going to show up here. I may even be quoting some of the people who are still in the group. But in a sense, everything is in response to something Alice said about 40 minutes ago, where she said, when I see people who are enjoying writing, it makes me feel wonderful. And it also touches upon Alice's question about introspection or interoception, which is the question, how do I feel? And I'm putting those two together. And I am going to do what everyone else has been doing today, which is to share my screen. Here we go. This is what makes this interactive. While I am showing you some images and saying a few things about them, I want you to grab a writing tool and a writing surface. I jokingly said stylus and clay tablet. If you've brought those, great, we love it. So I would like you to grab some writing tools, and I would like you to do one of the following 4 things while I'm talking. One of them is doodle. That's, while I'm talking, you can doodle. Second one is, one of the things you can do is you can take notes on a device. By device, I mean a digital device of some kind. The third thing that you can do, my invitation, if you're going to take part in this workshop, is to take notes in longhand. And your fourth option is to take notes in shorthand. And so I will wait just a few minutes and I will hum a few bars of this and that while you decide which of these options you're going to take up. And then I am going to throw a few ideas in your direction. Some of them are ones that we've already talked about, but there's a huge difference in talking about an idea in the abstract and actually doing something. As I'm discovering by talking about calligraphy in the abstract and then actually trying to write a book. Okay, so I'm hoping that after all of this vamping, you are now ready to do one of those things, and I'm hoping that you've decided you're not too self-conscious to actually take part. By the way, this is going to be somewhat similar to the Sunday sessions that I've been holding every couple of weeks. So for about 90 minutes every other Sunday, we have a live Zoom that kind of grew out of the Writing Beyond Writing book club. So when my book Writing Beyond Writing came out, we had a whole series of discussion meetings about that. And then we started having another series called The Art of Writing discussions, and the two of them have kind of merged. So if you are interested in joining those meetings, which happen roughly every 2 weeks on Sundays, then let me know about that as well. For what it's worth, I can no longer see the chat because I've got my whole screen here. So if you put stuff in the chat, that'd be great, but I won't be able to see it right away. So the question that I'm asking here is, how do you feel about writing? Now, this is a question that I don't believe in 30 years of teaching writing I ever actually asked my students. And in fact, a number of the things that I'm really interested in are things that I'm kicking myself for asking, 30, 35 years too late. And the reason why this, how do you feel about writing, is not only an unusual question, but a timely one, is that, as we've already said, especially during Alice's talk, the United States now leads the world in people who cannot read handwriting, which is a pretty dubious distinction. Many other countries are still routinely teaching handwriting. But again, we're at this really interesting point in history where we don't know for sure whether writing is going to become something that is so dominated by digital thinking that that's the way we think about it, or whether the way writing has been, again, as Alice said, for thousands of years in terms of its relationship to us and how we use it, whether that is going to continue to be an important part of the role of writing in the world, it's kind of in the balance. And so we're doing this workshop so that some of the issues involved are ones that you experience at first hand instead of just debating. And so I think I've vamped long enough. Here we go. So those who saw my talk at the WEWD conference in Cambridge will have seen this kind of provocative statement already. So you can look at this and you can go, if this were not writing, I couldn't read the fact that this says this is not writing, therefore it must be writing. What are you talking about? And what I say is that this is actually a slide made from a screen grab, made from Photoshop, from a doc that I made in Microsoft Word by typing into a keyboard. And yet, when we look at this, it is a paradox. We say, of course, this is writing. What are you talking about? So what I'm doing is springing off René Magritte's provocative statement, where he said, "Ceci n'est pas une pipe." This is not a pipe. And of course, everyone kind of goes, but it is a pipe. And the title of this painting is, in fact, The Treachery of Images, because what he means is that we are used to seeing something like this and calling it a pipe, but you can't smoke it. You can't tap it out. Pipe smokers seem to get a great deal of pleasure out of punctuating their conversation by tapping the ashes out of their pipe or raising an eyebrow while they suck on the pipe, like Sherlock Holmes. There are many ways in which this is not a pipe, and those ways define the pleasure of pipe smoking. I'm not advocating everybody take up smoking, but it's worth thinking about what writing is that this is not. So we've talked a fair amount today about different kinds of things that could be called writing, or could be called writing in some sense. And so this is from Vanuatu. This is a narrative technique, and this is actually from a video of a traditional storyteller who is carrying out this traditional art. And what he's doing is he is telling the story of something that happened more than a century ago. That the practice of blackbirding was a slavery practice. So a ship would turn up in the harbor of some island, and no matter what they said, we run out of water, we want to fill up on supplies. What they were really going to do was just capture a number of people and enslave them on the ship. And this was known as blackbirding. And in many cases, the islanders had never seen a ship, or had certainly never seen a ship of this kind, and didn't know what to make of it. And so therefore they were vulnerable to this approach. And so the story develops as a warning. And essentially it says, if you see something like this, run. But as we said a few hours ago, writing is wonderful in its ability to make use of available materials. And so this is a story that is told while writing in the sand. And it's fascinating because it's impermanent. You know, the image is not going to be there very long at all, but also that it's dynamic. It is a narrative that shows as it tells. And so even the final picture is not the whole story. The story is the performance. And again, Alice raised the question, you know, is writing the performance, or is it the aftermath, the trace that's left behind? This is one of the world's few percussive forms of writing. So this is actually a Filipino tattooing tradition. And it involves having a stick with a sharp point in it, maybe a nail, and then striking, and that obviously has ink on it, and then striking that with another stick to penetrate the surface of the skin. And this may seem not only painful, but barbaric, but in fact, because it is so intimate and permanent, it's actually regarded as a spiritual practice. And one of the practitioners, Christian Cabaret, talks about his pre-Philippine, in other words, pre-Spanish, traditional tattooing practice. And he says it's always in ceremony with offerings made to ancestors. It's always coherent with traditional designs. It's handmade with hand-tapped tools. And it's a cultural practice that is reverential to ancestral practices. Each tap of the stick involves a pain that is an echo of a pain felt by an ancestor. At this point, I'm going to step back and say, I hope that you're all doodling, taking notes on a device, taking notes in longhand or taking notes in shorthand. We also talked about the fact that handwriting has the ability to convey the physical and or emotional state of the writer. So this, one of my great correspondents on this, Helen McGowan, is studying 18th century Japanese calligraphy. And this is a novel that is actually told. It's written by a man, but it's told from the viewpoint of a protagonist who is a woman. And it's an epistolary novel. In other words, a novel written as a series of letters, which, by the way, is how I'm thinking of doing my calligraphy book at the moment. And even though this calligraphy is actually extremely hard to read, even for experts, the state of mind of the letter writer is really clearly evident in the calligraphy itself. And so at the beginning, you can see it's pretty formal, it's well lined up. There aren't any of these really, really long descenders. And then as it gets happier, it sort of loosens up. You can see that there's a lot more lateral play. When it's ecstatic, there is an enormous amount of white space. There's a great deal of enjoyment in the act of writing, which is really, really clear. And then towards the end, when the protagonist, the letter writer, is in extreme distress, then you can see that as well. So when we talk about this is not writing, so what is writing? Here you can see a little bit of the range of opportunities that writing by hand offers that we may never have practiced, or we may have not, or may have forgotten, or we may not consider anymore. And in particular, we may not consider the fact that we're losing them if we move out of the handwritten realm. This is something that is actually almost inconceivable to to us nowadays. This is this is one of the last newspapers that was written by hand in Bangalore, in India. There is still one Urdu Muslim newspaper called the Musalman, which is still written by hand in Chennai. This one in Bangalore has now gone bust. But there's a couple of things that I want to point out here. So this is written in the Nastaliq script, which is a particularly revered and sacred and expressive form of Arabic script. It is exactly the opposite of what we expect of newspapers. It is not crisp and clear and consistent. It is not cost effective. It's not time effective. We obviously, as one who's worked in a newsroom, I know this. You know, the priority is get the story, get it written, get it out. You know, hit the streets. And when you're writing everything by hand, that's really a challenge. It's also not particularly easy to read, even for Arabic readers. There are no gaps between words. You've got an extreme variation in letter height and in articulation of various kinds. So here what we have is, in a sense, the two views of writing clashing. One view that it is expressive, it is personal, this has the opportunity to be artistic. It is a gift from a writer to a reader. And then the other view, which is it is a form of communication, it is a utility. It doesn't matter how it's written as long as it communicates something that is important. So the first thing I want you to do right now is I'm going to ask you to stop whatever you're doing and look at your writing. And in particular, what I would like you to do, I'm going to stop screen sharing in just a second, is to say, are there any characters that you write or any letters that you write, depending on your script, that you have formed because you like the look of them that way, rather than because they're supposed to be written a certain way, or you were taught to write them in a certain way? And the example I'm going to give is the fact that I use this Greek E when I write. And this is really, really significant in terms of like what handwriting means, because I didn't write like this until I was 14. And then I started making friends with a kid who became my best friend. His name was John Jenkins. And for reasons that I don't know, he used a Greek E. And the Greek E was kind of rebellious because it wasn't the way we had been taught to write. But on the other hand, it was sanctioned by 2,000 years of tradition. And even our history teacher used a Greek E. So it became a way in a very structured and repressive English school of being a little different and a little rebellious without actually getting punished for it. So to me, that Greek E is now absolutely a part of not only my writing, but the way I like to present myself to the world. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm going to invite anybody who's here to hold up whatever it is that you're writing and to show us how you write and how you believe this is a way of presenting yourself to the world that you have chosen. And obviously you can turn your cameras back on again and you can unmute yourselves to do this. Okay, Alec, you go first. You have been invisible throughout this process, and you deserve to have your say. Go ahead.
This is my first time on Zoom. I was just saying I didn't know what to say. I just thought I was showing. Just some doodling.
Funny.
I guess I can share a quick story that I hated my handwriting going into high school. So I worked super hard on it, and this is kind of what it's become over the years. So I was very intent on making my handwriting artistic rather than just communicative. And that's been a goal of mine for decades now.
Can you show us any of it? We're getting great performance art from the cats, by the way. Ooh, dark side artists. Ah, grooving up slowly. Okay.
What I do in
Um,
meetings.
so the reason I asked about doodling, by the way, is that typically in school you get punished for doodling or whatever. But it turns out that people who are listening to something really boring, and as an example, I gave you my lecture on writing, right? People who doodle when they're listening to something really boring have better retention of the content than people who don't, which is such an interesting observation that says something about the mind. And nobody really knows because there's almost no research been done into doodling and brainwave function, all that kind of stuff. But it's something that I'm looking into, and I imagine Alice is probably looking into as well. Okay, who's up next? Okay, Alice, you're
I
up.
go, I go. That's mine. Here we go.
Oh,
It's a bit of it's written how you feel about writing, plus some notes, plus some my doodles things that relaxes me. Yeah.
how would you feel if you couldn't doodle
In this page or in general?
in general?
Um, well, I concentrate much better if I doodle. I assimilate notions more when I doodle. So it's important. And it's something that is very relaxing, I find.
Great, thank you. Someone else? Whoa.
That's Greg's shorthand.
So you've written the horizontal stuff in shorthand and then notes up the margin, so to speak, in
Yeah.
long.
Yeah.
Tell us what that does for you.
I don't know. I like combining them, whatever. I don't know. I have fun. I have fun writing. I like writing. I like writing with different colors even while I'm writing. I like the combo pack. So, and as you know, I do calligraphy too, and I don't like doing traditional stuff really so much because like you're in a box and I don't like being in a box. I like working outside the box. So
I should say that Debbie is one of the leading lights of the Chicago Calligraphy Collective, which, by the way, is a wonderfully kind of early 20th century socialist name for a group. I love it.
it is. Yeah. Rather than being a guild, we're a collective because that a guild gave the connotation that you have to be professionals. And so in 76, when they were forming it, they wanted to make everyone feel welcome. So that's why they decided to be a collective.
Excellent. So when you are, I'll be right with you. When you are writing in shorthand, are you sufficiently skilled at shorthand that you feel as if you're able to get down everything of importance?
I used to take like meeting notes verbatim and then type them from that. And yeah, so I mean, with a little practice, I could do it, at the speed of what you're saying too. So yeah, I can get plenty in. And here's my little story on my shorthand. when my kids were little, I used to have the Christmas list. Well, once they knew there was no Santa Claus. Anyone who doesn't, well, okay, that's a secret. When I was Santa Claus, I would write down the list of the things that I bought for both of them, and I would have their name, Mark, Brian, and underneath it, I would write what I bought in shorthand, and I would let it out. And they never knew what I bought because like they couldn't read it. So what someone was saying about how using a language for a secret between people, you know, it's a secret to myself. And I write some journal entries too in shorthand, because I don't think even people that read shorthand have a hard time reading other people's shorthand sometimes. So, and I don't think when I die, anyone's going to be able to read my shorthand. So it's my secret to myself.
So interesting. So even in the shorthand realm, you're making it your own. You're creating a club of one, so to speak. That is so kind of empowering in a way that I hadn't even thought about. I didn't even put down originally take notes in shorthand because I haven't thought much about shorthand, but I'm glad I did, and I'm glad that you did.
Oh, me too. Thanks.
Great. Okay, who has plastered this image up there?
Sorry, this is from Pippa. She dropped it in the chat.
Oh, do we know anything about this? Because I don't think Pippa's with us right now. I think she's busy looking after Ben.
He is with us, but can't do audio or video. She says,
must be looking after Ben.
I chose doodling and will add a pic. My doodling turned into asemic writing. One line isn't asemic, though, if you want a puzzle.
Can talk for a second.
Okay, you can talk for a second.
I'm listening. It's just that, yeah, Ben's running around at the moment. That's why I'm sort of in and out of it. So, yeah, I won't put my camera on. But, yeah, so my doodling turned into asemic writing. I'll blame Olga for that. But one of these lines is not asemic. So that was a puzzle for everyone. And two of them were inspired by specific writing systems, and then two of them are not, of the 5 lines. Yeah, that's what doodling turned into for me. I think it's a channel for what's going on in your head.
How interesting. Yeah, because doodling is such a vehicle for not only intellectual freedom, but intellectual exploration, because there is no right way to doodle. And so it means that wherever your mind's going to go, you know, your pencil's going to follow, and that's okay, which is pretty much the opposite of how we're taught to write. And this notion of how we're taught to write is, you know, very much behind so much of the problems we're facing. Okay, anybody else want to throw theirs up? Because I actually want to go on to a couple of other things.
Yeah, I got one.
Yeah, go for it.
But, cool. So I'll just present, maybe let me transfer, I can switch the camera. So I'm going to present 2 things. It's like maybe where this started. And basically on this page is a little collage book, not a little one, it's actually quite big. But these are like, sort of like exercises I did. So when I'm bored, I like just draw a line and then try and, yeah, sometimes I'll go over it. I think I learned a new word today, which is asemic. So I think that sort of applies, and then I'll try and maybe, yeah, kind of make it a bit more aesthetically pleasing, because I get a bit paranoid. My writing has always been bad. I felt like I have doctor's handwriting, although I don't have the skills to be a doctor. And then, yeah, this was just like me doodling right now, but it's almost like the same thing. So I've just kind of got it into a rhythm now, and yeah, that's how it goes. But why I like it is because it helps me supercharge my brain. So if I'm feeling very uninspired, the letter forms, whatever it is that forms out from this freehand, like how you see here, can help me like maybe develop on other things. But yeah, that's about it.
So I'm going to challenge something you said, because you said my handwriting has always been bad. And I guess the fact that it may or may not look like, you know, kind of official penmanship. If, on the other hand, it allows you to supercharge your brain and it becomes a means by which you can interrogate yourself, you know, you can go in there and find out what's there, if you like. Then I think that whatever either your relatives or your teacher might say about the quality of your penmanship, it's actually fulfilling this really, really interesting interior function.
Yes. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
So, Catherine, it looks as if yours is kind of the opposite. Catherine says, wow, I actually printed in pencil on scrap paper. My page is more like class notes. So, yeah, I mean, it really, I have this theory about AI. And the theory is that if we believe that writing is a chore, then we want a robot to do it for us. And if we give up practicing writing, it actually then we also lose the ability to read writing. Reading is a far more complex process than it seems to be. And I realize this because, again, in writing my book, I was looking over this one particular entry and I thought, I can't even read my own writing. How do I expect somebody else to be able to read it? But the fact is that people who read a wide variety of handwritings are much better at hypothesizing what these various shapes might be in terms of context, and also in anticipation. So we read because we have a sense of what's coming next. Okay, I'm looking at Iris's doodle here. Whoa. Okay, that's cool. Oh, this is amazing seeing all this stuff here. Jane says, mine too, totally utilitarian with an emphasis on efficiency and saving pen strokes. And of course, there is a time when that is what you want. But if you're told that's the only thing it is, then you're like, what are you missing out on? Okay, so my next assignment for you, I'm going to go back to sharing. No, I'm not going to share my screen just yet. Ooh, whoa, whoa, I love it. Wow. Yes, I love the Mamma Mia too. Nice faces, by the way. Okay, so now I want to do a slightly different part of the same exercise. I want you to turn your cameras off just for a second. And I want you to sign your name. And ideally to do it in the way that you are most comfortable with, as opposed to, this is how I ought to be signing my name. Let's see how you sign your name when you do it. So I'm going to give you a few seconds here. And why not? While I'm going to cover it for you by vamping again. And so this, there you are. I signed my name for you. That says something. And this is where I think it's worth pointing out that the word autograph, the roots of the word autograph could be interpreted to mean self-portrait. That's worth thinking about. Okay, who wants to show their signature? And we're not going to do a screen grab and then use it on a check so that we can like steal your identity and whatnot. Okay, Debbie, you're up. No, show us your signature.
There we go.
No, I'm serious. Show us your signature.
That's how I sign my name all the time.
I'm joking. I'm joking. That is amazing. It's like the Sydney Opera House reflected in the bay.
It is. And I used to take such pride in like writing my name so pretty, like on a check, my signature. I always thought it had to be legible. Then at some point I thought, it doesn't have to be legible. It could be what I want. And so that's, I mean, like I have a D and L's and some of the letters are in there, and that's what I like. So.
Right. So you've chosen the letters that give you pleasure to write.
Absolutely. Yeah. Interesting.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And I would also add one more thing. Can you hold it up again?
Yeah.
So if you notice, everybody, the final stroke is kind of like a zip off to the right.
Yeah.
Right. So thanks very much. In the Japanese calligraphy 4-panel thing I showed you, that particular style of calligraphy, I am reliably informed by Helen McGowan, involves these really long descenders. And they are much longer than they need to be for, for the character to be complete or legible. And she made a really interesting point about these long descenders, which is that when you're writing, and this is true not only of Japanese calligraphy in the 18th century, but now, when you're writing the way you're taught to write in school, and everything is small and controlled, it is in a way safe. Your physical body is restricted and enclosed. If you start doing a more expansive gesture, it actually makes you vulnerable. It's a way of opening your body up. So when I first started coaching soccer, I was coaching girls varsity soccer in 1982. And at that stage in American history, many of those girls had never played a sport before. And there were a number of really interesting phenomena associated with first-time playing, but one of them was that many of them had difficulty shooting, that is, kicking the ball as hard as they could. Because to shoot, you have to throw yourself off balance. You have to throw your weight through the ball and assume that you're gonna land okay. You're giving all of that energy to the ball. And so many of them were brought up as girls to keep themselves within a narrow physical radius. And some of them, when they tried to shoot, their foot would actually stop their foot as soon as it hit the ball, because they didn't want that sensation of being off balance. And so what you've allowed yourself to do with that final stroke there is to say, to hell with all that. Okay, who else wants to show their signature? Okay, I think Alice is showing us something. This is your Egyptian signature.
Yeah, that's my signature and my tag, graffiti tag. So I have the same starting letter, which is an A and an S.
Yes. So no, don't take that away just yet. Don't take that away just yet. So one of the things I want to bring up is something that I mentioned last Sunday. So I'm sorry for those who are here. I'm repeating myself. So Pippa found this fascinating piece of research in which the researchers were asking themselves the question, as a script is used and used and used over time, does it get simpler? Do the forms get less complex and easier to write? And what they found was something unexpected, which is that it's not that the script as a whole or the characters as a whole get simpler. It's that if you're writing, say, left to right, you pay more attention to the beginning of the letter or the word than the end. And so you've got this beautifully elaborate opening character. And then, especially with your signature, as it goes on, it becomes less elaborate. And if you remember my signature, and I do this before I heard Pippa's research, the T is extremely artistic and expressive, and it's something I take pride in. And then after that, it's like bleh. And so if you think about it, these are the two views of writing. The first view of writing, which is it's artistic, it's expressive, it's personal. I am going to put attention into how I do it. And then the second view is it is utilitarian. I'm only doing as much as I need to do. Then a signature actually has both of those in one word. The beginning, which is the artistic view, and then the end, which is I've just got to get this thing done. And it just tails off into, you know, the kind of the minimum necessary. We are running out of time, but I want to end this workshop with not only an appeal to hit the donation and all that kind of stuff, but an invitation. So when we had our workshop on Sunday, something happened which I wasn't expecting, and it was absolutely wonderful. And it must have been wonderful for other people as well. So I think it was Iris who started this. So she is in South Africa, and she said, I love writing by hand. I would welcome the opportunity to exchange letters or postcards with other people from this group. And immediately, like 3 or 4 people jumped on it and did something which nobody ever does these days, which is to give their mailing address out over the internet, or in the chat in this case. So the last thing I want to do here is to issue that invitation to everybody in the group here that if you would like to receive actual handwritten communication in that old Ken Burns Civil War style, where the mother is writing to the son at the front, or the son is writing home and saying, I have seen terrible things. And it's so personal and irreplaceable. Then please put your information in the chat. And while you're doing that, I am going to come up with the next 3 people who are going to get books sent to them as part of the giveaway process. Coming up next, I'm going to be talking with Anusha Hussain, who has taken over the script encoding initiative from Debbie Anderson. And we're going to talk about the future of and the challenges of digitizing scripts that are used by small numbers of people. So I'm going to duck out, and I'll be back in just a few minutes.